Happy WrestleMania weekend, folks, and welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham Jason Matthews, break down all the content I watch on the WWE Network. Today we're talking the latest episode of WWE Untold, entitled Angle vs. HBK, of course covering the exact 15-year anniversary of Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle from WrestleMania 21 15 years ago, yesterday when the episode went up, of course, on the WWE Network from WrestleMania 21. One of the best Manias, one of the best matches in Mania history, broke it all down yesterday in our official live stream watch-along from WrestleMania 21, Alexis and I. So if you haven't already checked it out, definitely do so right here on the channel. But this Untold is great. We just had an episode of the show about 2 weeks ago, I want to say, on Dennis Rodman and WCW and that whole thing. This one was very timely. When I found out, first of all, that it was airing, I was very excited because this is one of my favorite WrestleMania matches of all time, at one of my favorite Manias of all time. And not only that, but the fact that it was going up on the exact 15-year anniversary from April 3rd, 2005 of when the match happened, I thought that was even cooler. But yeah, this was a great match. And they don't have a lot of people interviewed for this episode. You have the key components. You have Shawn Michaels. You have Kurt Angle, of course. And they also interview Michael Cole, who I believe called the match, if I remember correctly. And then as well as Johnny Gargano. Now, if you're wondering, what does Johnny Gargano have to do with anything? It's the fact that he grew up a massive fan of both guys, Kurt and Shawn, specifically Shawn. And he knows Shawn very well, so he was a fitting person to have on the episode to kind of fill in the blank from a fan perspective of seeing this match, watching it live as a fan. It's a really tremendous match, needless to say. So we kick off the episode with Johnny Gargano, the former NXT champion, who said that his generation of wrestlers was molded by guys like Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle. And by that he means those were the guys, Michaels and Angle, that really inspired people like him and people of his generation to get into professional wrestling. Kurt Angle thought it was a great story to tell. Johnny Gargano says that Kurt Angle was as good as they come. Kurt Angle said that he never really thought that he would ever find anything that would fill the void of never being able to win another Olympic gold medal again, and then he found professional wrestling. He found WWE. WrestleMania for him was like the Olympic Games all over again. And they talk about how fans were already talking about when Shawn Michaels returned to the ring in 2002, fans were talking about Kurt Angle, about how hot he was, and because by 2002, Kurt Angle had been in WWE for about 3 years, a former multi-time tag team IC European WWE champion, King of the Ring, all this other cool stuff. The guy was on fire by 2002. By 2002, 3 years in, he was a standard bearer of the company, putting over guys like Rey Mysterio and Edge and Eddie Guerrero, people like that. So even by that point, 3 years in, he was already a main event level talent. And obviously, he was already being compared to Shawn Michaels. By that point, Kurt Angle was on SmackDown, Shawn Michaels was on Raw, so their paths never really had to cross until 2005. Johnny Gargano talks about how Shawn Michaels was killing it back in 95, 96, specifically, I would say, with his WWE title run in 96, having one of the best and most, I would say, underappreciated championship runs in the entire company's history. Great matches with Bret Hart at that year's WrestleMania, of course, when he won it. Diesel in the months that followed at In Your House, Mankind, Vader at SummerSlam, Psycho Sid even at Survivor Series, and probably more I'm not thinking of. But the guy had an amazing run that year of awesome pay-per-view, main event level championship matches. And then he had to retire, albeit briefly, not briefly, but like in 98 for the back injury, came back in 2002. When he came back, Gargano talked about how his style changed, and he had to evolve, and he became more hard-hitting, and he got better, Gargano said. Because Shawn Michaels jokes here in this documentary that before he left, they could do some really cool stuff, making it look like it hurt, but it didn't actually hurt. When he came back in 2002, these people were beating the shit out of each other for real. And they show clips of his non-sanctioned match with Triple H from SummerSlam, being inside the Elimination Chamber, the Armageddon match, all this other stuff. The 3 Stages of Hell match with Triple H from Armageddon 2002. So now they were beating the shit out of each other for real, and his body wasn't really ready for it, he admits, but he went in there, adapted, and overcame, and was still one of the greatest of all time, and still is arguably the greatest of all time in WWE. At WrestleMania, he performed on a level unlike anyone else, and those are words from the Heartbreak Kid himself. The Royal Rumble Gargano talks about has always really kind of been a blueprint for what might happen at WrestleMania. He said he remembers reading like one of those dirt sheets, like Lords of Pain or some dumb shit, lordsofpain.net. I was going on that website for years until I discovered like more credible sources and stuff about 5-6 years ago, which is probably a little too late even then. But anyway, Gargano talked about how he was reading reports or rumors, whatever, back in late 04, early 05, about the idea of Shawn versus Kurt actually happening at WrestleMania 21. And he was very excited for that. Because, by that point, the WrestleMania plans kind of come into fruition and they start to get set in stone. And they start to put the plans into motion for what we will see at Mania around, November, December, specifically January is kind of like the last point. I mean, in recent years, they've started storylines in February, even March, which isn't ideal, but they started the build for Kurt and Shawn at the Royal Rumble. They interacted at the Rumble for the first time because Shawn Michaels, so Kurt Angle came into the Rumble match. He dominated for a stretch of 30 seconds. Shawn comes in, immediately eliminates him with a sweet chin music, goes right over the top rope. Angle, pissed, comes back out soon after and eliminates Shawn. And that laid the groundwork for what would be, again, their WrestleMania match, and one of the greatest WrestleMania matches at that of all time. Gargano was pumped when he saw them interact because finally he got to see them go at it at WrestleMania. Shawn Michaels, in his head leading up to the match, they had to figure out ways to build the match. Because remember, going into WrestleMania, this was an interpromotional match, which I don't think happened all that often back then. Maybe I'm mistaken. I know Benoit did it back in 04. I'm not really sure how they pulled that off. But Benoit was a SmackDown guy when he won the World Heavyweight title from Triple H at WrestleMania 20 in a match also involving Shawn Michaels. That was an interpromotional match, technically. Unless maybe when he won the Rumble, he went over to Raw. I'm pretty sure he was still on SmackDown up until he won the belt. But either way, they had to figure out ways to further the feud without kind of diminishing the brand split. But by 05, I would say it kind of started to go downhill. 02 to 05, I would say they really reinforced it. After 05, after Survivor Series, I would say, it kind of became a joke in terms of who went where and people switching shows at random, ad nauseum, whatever. It was actually in 05, Michael said, and I never knew this. It was actually during a promo that he was cutting on Raw in March, I think March 7th to be exact. In a March episode of Monday Night Raw, where he threw out the Mr. WrestleMania nickname for the first time. I guess before that, no one had ever alluded to him, at least in WWE, maybe the fans did, but at least in WWE, as Mr. WrestleMania. Because by that point, people probably started to realize, hey, he has a pretty great stretch of WrestleMania matches here with Stone Cold Steve Austin, Bret Hart, obviously in recent years by that point with Chris Jericho, with Benoit and Triple H, and now going into WrestleMania 21, he was starting to be recognized as, hey, this guy is actually one of the best when it comes to WrestleMania matches. And Shawn talked about how wrestling is strictly built on emotion. If you can get people invested in a match in two characters, the match will be that much better. If the audience is invested, the match will be infinitely better, 10 times better, if that, 100 times better. Michael Cole, who was interviewed quite a bit for this documentary, said that Shawn Michaels being called the greatest ever by fans really bothered Kurt. And now Kurt does not confirm or deny this, but it would make sense because Kurt was always regarded as one of the best when it came to his, amateur wrestling and Olympic wrestling and whatever. He was always regarded as the best at what he did. Now coming into WWE, there was someone who was even better, according to the fans, and he wanted to put that to the test in the WrestleMania match. So he admitted that Angle had a chip on his shoulder going into WrestleMania, and Angle wanted to prove that anything Shawn could do, he could do better. So they replay a segment from SmackDown leading up to Mania where Kurt Angle issued an open challenge for anyone who lived in the city, because I guess they were in Texas or whatever. Out came some loser, and they wanted to make you think that it was Shawn in disguise. It was some random local athlete. Instead, Shawn was the cameraman. A trick that has always worked, that's been done to death over the years, but it's always worked, though. And it worked wonders here, too. The crowd went nuts when Shawn took off his, the fake hair and the mustache and the clothes, whatever, let his hair down, and then went right after Kurt, went, right behind his back. The crowd went fucking nuts. Michael Cole was like, oh, it's so cool to have Shawn Michaels back. He didn't say this on commentary. He said this in the doc. He goes, oh, it kind of reminded me of DX Shawn Michaels there for a moment and all this other stuff. I'm like, he kind of insinuates that we hadn't really seen the real Shawn Michaels up until that point. And it's like, dude, where were you at WrestleMania 19 and 20? Like, what are you talking about? Maybe the disguise thing was DX-esque. Other than that, though, I'm not really sure what he was getting at. But Cole does bring up how Angle, and he says these words exactly, Kurt Angle loved being a heel. Angle in the build-up to the bout brought up how Shawn Michaels had been in his head since 1996 when he was winning Olympic gold medals. Shawn Michaels, all he would hear about was Shawn Michaels, this dude that was fucking flying in from the rafters of WrestleMania 12. Oh, such a great line. Such a great line. And this was real to Angle. Michael Cole talks about how this was very much real to Kurt Angle. And that's when they replay the Sexy Kurt segment from Raw, or rather from SmackDown, leading up to Mania, when Kurt Angle came out with a Sensational Sherry, sang the Kurt Angle, or the Shawn Michaels theme song in his own words. Absolutely amazing. Gargano loved it. Cole called it one of the funniest moments in WWE history, one of the funniest things he's ever seen, because Angle specifically took it seriously. His character really thought he was that good, that he could do whatever Shawn Michaels could do, but better. That was what made that segment so good, and I completely agree. It was entertaining. It furthered the story, Gargano said. Even Shawn Michaels said he thought it was hilarious. He thought it was amazing. And Gargano said, this is what wrestling is. This segment really captured what wrestling is all about. Then, of course, Angle would put Sensational Sherry in the ankle lock and be made to look like an asshole. Great segment. That's really, when you say Angle versus Shawn from Mania 21, even honestly more so than the match itself, as someone who wasn't watching at the time, that's the first thing I think of, is that Sexy Kurt skit from SmackDown in 05. So anyway, Gargano says that you'll always get something special with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. Michael Cole called it among the best build-ups that WWE's ever done for a match, and that they went out there, not only was the match beautifully built up, they went out there and completely stole the show. And that's saying something, because WrestleMania 21 I thought was a very good show. Triple H and Batista, very good main event. Cena and JBL, not so much, but the match was fine. Money in the Bank ladder match, great match. Eddie and Rey Mysterio, great match. Randy Orton versus The Undertaker, great match, Pat Patterson, I guess, told Shawn Michaels to slap Kurt Angle at the start of the match to really sell the intensity, and he did, and it was a great moment. I guess Kurt Angle told this story about how Shawn told him going into the match, like a week or two before, he said, dude, I'm not afraid of you. And Kurt's like, what are you talking about? And he took that to mean, listen, I know, you were the best at what you did in your world, but if you try to take advantage of me in this match, I will show you who's boss. And Angle's like, listen, I'm easy to work with, dude. I don't know why you're taking this so seriously, but he gets it now why he did that. The wrestling in the beginning, like all the mat wrestling, was intended to send the message that they were kind of feeling each other out. It was the first time they had ever locked up, which makes sense. I love the psychology behind this match. It's so fucking brilliant. Kurt Angle, Gargano says, is a technical wrestling mastermind. Shawn Michaels had to keep up, and he did. And he even admits that he had to expand his moveset here. He calls it a very limited moveset, which I find very hard to believe. He thinks himself as like the fucking Great Khali, that he only had 5 moves in his arsenal, which could not be any further from the truth. He's being modest here, if you couldn't already tell. Kurt says that Shawn's chops stung really bad. He really sold those chops because they actually hurt. But that only gave him more adrenaline. And that ticked him off just a little bit to the point where he was really laying his shit in. He hit the angle slam in the ring post, which was great because it exposed Shawn Michaels' back injury, his bad back from years earlier. Again, great storytelling, great psychology. And Gargano says, I hate to admit it, he says, because I work with Shawn, But Angle may have every advantage in every possible aspect. From a wrestling standpoint, he had the size factor on him. He had that extra check mark in almost every single category. Shawn Michaels says, listen, if we can go out there and make nothing else in the world matter but what we're doing in that ring, I'm pretty sure it's going to go well. And it did. Angle, he said he was supposed to give Shawn a German suplex. Now, I assume the planned spot was for Shawn to do the low blow the entire time. Angle kind of makes it sound like, I was supposed to do the German suplex and he gave me the low blow because he didn't want to take the move. He didn't say that verbatim, but like, that's kind of what he's getting at. That's a bad fucking bump. Like, the guy would have almost died if he... Has anyone taken a German suplex from the ring apron down to the floor? I'm sure we've seen it before, but that's a bad bump, especially for a dude with as fucked up of a back as Shawn Michaels has. So I assume that was his spot they were going for the entire time. Shawn Michaels then leaped off the top of the, not off the top of the turnbuckle, but the ring apron on top of Angle on the commentary table. Great spot. That caused Angle to bleed from the mouth. Again, a great visual as he spit out the blood. He really wanted to make the most out of it and add intensity to the match by really showcasing how much this match meant to him, how badly he wanted to win with the blood coming out of his mouth. The guy was almost foaming at the mouth with blood here because of how badly he wanted to beat Shawn Michaels, okay? Kurt goes for the moonsault. It's a beautiful moonsault. Michael Cole talks about it. Johnny Gargano talks about it. Cole says he thinks that, him and Brock in their early days when they first started together in 2002, 2003, they would kind of compare who had the better moonsault because they both loved doing moonsaults. And Gargano said, listen, and Cole does come to the conclusion that Kurt Angle of the two had a better moonsault, but don't tell Brock that. Gargano thinks that the guy just floats. It looks like he's floating out there, and I completely agree. That's a great way of putting it. So we went for the moonsault. He missed. HBK moved. Shawn then hit him with a sweet chin music out of nowhere. Great near fall. Great moment. Then Kurt locks in the ankle lock and made him tap out and made Shawn look like an underdog. He was about to tap out. He was trying to hesitate. He was hesitating, tried to get out of it, tried to refrain from tapping out, but ultimately he had to succumb to the pressure and give in to Kurt Angle's ankle lock. Kurt Angle said it was really, really special, and he could tell because when they went to the back afterward, Michael Cole said that, again, I don't remember if he was on commentary. I'm pretty sure that he was. He said that calling the match, this near 30-minute instant classic, he didn't want it to end. And then when Kurt and Shawn got to the back, they had like 50 people, Kurt said, giving them a standing ovation. Called it magic, that they had instant chemistry, which is almost unbelievable for two people that had never touched before prior to this point, which is why Kurt Angle says it was the greatest match I ever had. And honestly, I don't dispute that. I would tend to agree that might just be, unless I can think of a better match, that just might be the best Kurt Angle match the guy ever had. Now, Shawn, the Taker match, would surpass this one as the greatest match that Shawn ever had. As the best Kurt Angle match that Kurt ever had, I think this was it. So then they cut to the end here with Shawn. Really emotional moment. I thought this was a great note to end on. The text says that Shawn actually skipped the post-WrestleMania after party they have every year, went back to his hotel room, and you're thinking, okay, why? It's because the producer asks Shawn what he did, and Shawn said that he went back to his hotel room, ordered pizza, watched Polar Express with his two kids, which would line up because the movie came out, I remember, in late 2004. This was early 2005, so by that point, the movie was probably already out on DVD. Why he was watching a Christmas movie in April of 2005, I'm not going to question it. He's the greatest of all time. He can do what he wants. But he said that he wept like a baby because he turned to his wife and said, I'm living the greatest life I could ever live. He's grateful for his kids. He's grateful for his wife that he's still married to. He said, it's freaking perfect, and I just don't deserve to live this life that I am right now. I thought that was an amazing note to end on. A really emotional Shawn Michaels, which you don't ordinarily see in stuff like this, but he broke down almost in tears. Great, great stuff. The last thing I expected from a documentary about Shawn and Kurt for Mania 21. But we saw another side of Shawn here, and I thought it was tremendous. This whole documentary was great, as you could expect. The match is amazing. Reliving it is great. Relive the match anyway, right now on WWE Network 15 years later, or you can rewatch it with me and Alexis in our WrestleMania 21 watch-along live stream right here on the channel from yesterday. But yeah, this episode of Untold, great stuff. Would love to see more stuff like this, where they go back on matches on their anniversary with the people that were involved, if they're still around, that is. I think it's great. So yeah, I really, really enjoy this. Check it out right now on the WWE Network. WWE Untold, Angle versus HBK. And thank you guys for checking out my review. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more content going up tomorrow. So I know I'm a day behind, and I did that on purpose. This episode of Untold went up yesterday. Today is an all-new Chronicle on Drew McIntyre ahead of WrestleMania tonight, tomorrow, whatever. I don't know when Drew and Brock is. I think it's on Sunday, but I'm not 100% sure. Either way, new Chronicle goes up today, or is up today by the time you're listening to this. I'm going to review that hopefully for tomorrow. And then my review of the Edge 24, the second Mountain or whatever it's called, which looks great, by the way, which goes up first thing Sunday, WrestleMania Sunday morning. That should be up on Monday. So today, Untold. Tomorrow, the Chronicle on McIntyre. Monday, the Edge 24 review. And then Tuesday, my review of WrestleMania 35. I believe Alexis will be joining me for that, considering that it's we were both there and it's the 1-year anniversary of the show itself. So a lot to look forward to here on the channel in the days to come. Enjoy WrestleMania weekend, guys. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road to WrestleMania.